All right. Well, hello and good afternoon, everybody. Thank you all for taking time to attend today's webinar to explore BigTime's full potential. We're going to be going over what it's like to update from the BigTime Enterprise Edition that you all are currently using. And that really is the purpose of today's call, to go through and show you all the differences. Before we get into the actual product demonstration, we'll start out a little bit high level. So my name is Dave Carney, and I am one of the account managers here at BigTime. I also have on the line with us Matt McCahill, one of the other account managers here. And it really is our job to make sure you're having a good experience with the software, and also to just help you out in this transition process in any way that we can. And to start that out, we'll go over some high level benefits of why a lot of folks have made the switch. In fact, we've converted about 90 to 93% of clients on your version to the new one so far. Some of the high level benefits listed here. First and foremost, you have access to a mobile app. Makes entering time and expense on the go a lot easier, especially with expense tracking and taking a quick picture of any expense images that you have. We also provide a much more modern look and feel that your staff will love. You'll find it a lot more efficient as well. And to that point, as we walk through the product today, you'll notice there are a lot of small differences that will add up to a much faster and efficient experience for you. To that extent as well, we also have major product enhancements every quarter. As I'm sure you are all aware, we haven't really rolled out any new features recently to your current version. We have increased speed and ease of use for admins as well. Again, the idea is to reduce the amount of time that you need to spend getting things done. Real-time budget management, staff utilization, and forecasting, these things are a lot easier to do in the new system as well, which we'll go over pretty in depth today. Personalized billing and invoicing can be done with ease out of BigTime IQ. Also welcome to continue doing that out of QuickBooks Desktop, as we still have our deep integration with QuickBooks. Also now, Sage Intacct is another accounting system, and Salesforce. So with that, we'll go ahead and dive into the solution overview product. So this is the administrator dashboard for BigTime IQ. You can see right away, we're giving you a couple charts and graphs that show us some summary level information on how the company is doing billability wise, for invoicing, for anything as far as our utilization goes. And we also have a much easier navigation set of tabs up top, where you can of course enter time and expenses, manage your invoicing, your QuickBooks connections. We have a brand new report center as well, half of the presentation today. We also have the My Company tab, add projects, staff, and change any company settings that you need to. As with your current BigTime site, it's easy to customize user rights. So your employees will only see and be able to interact with the features that you deem necessary. And for that, today we'll start out by going to the project list, and we'll dive into a project. We're going to do some setup for that project, some forecasting. We'll track some time and expenses against it, invoice that project, and we'll wrap it all up with reporting. And if anyone has any questions before we go into all of this, feel free to type those into the chat box. Matt's available and he'll be answering those questions as well. With that, we'll go over to the project list. You can see on this page, it's already a lot more intuitive, a lot easier to navigate. Be able to bring your projects over from your current system, as well as things like your staff records, time entries, historical expenses, invoices, all of those things. There are three main things that will not be transitioned to the new system. Any custom invoice templates that you have, custom report templates, and any stored documents. Outside of that, you'll notice that this page is a lot easier to navigate, even to find your projects. It's infinity scrolled, so you don't have to flip through pages. You don't have to worry about pop-up windows either. Also, very quickly, do a smart type. Limit the list by any sort of characters that you'd like. That includes project numbers, clients, or project names. Outside of that, you can also use Salesforce or QuickBooks to get your project and client information into BigTime IQ. With that, we'll start in this project here called product development. Now, this project dashboard here is going to allow us to add some high-level information on the project. That's really going to help us on the back end with reporting. Your project type field will populate all your project information here as well. This is fully customizable, so if you need to adjust or add any of these, you certainly can. It allows you to put that label on your projects to make sure you can see exactly which areas of your business are generating the most revenue, other metric that you'd like to see. Scrolling down, you can see we have our QuickBooks link right here, and we can easily push this project over to QuickBooks, along with any contact information that we have in here as well. There are some other fields here that will be pretty useful for you. Statuses for the projects, and also these three that we refer to as cost centers. These represent more labels you can put on projects, but these can also be applied to staff members. So if you're looking for some more advanced reporting, these fields will be invaluable for you. Beyond that, we have some other helpful boxes down here. Default invoice notes are pretty useful, especially if there's any nuance involved in creating an invoice for this particular job or client. If there's anything else that's missing from here, you also have the ability to add custom fields, project page. Now, these can be a number of different things from lookup fields to date ranges to deposits or PO numbers. A lot you can do here. The name of the game really is customization. Pushing to QuickBooks is a breeze. You see this box popping up right here. The software knows we haven't pulled this from QuickBooks. Click yes, add it now. Over. Now, next time we sync with our QuickBooks file, that information will be pushed over. You'll all probably be happy to know that the remote monitor has been scrapped for the new system. We've created an entirely new sync agent that works much, much better than remote monitor ever did. So that's the basic dashboard. We'll just move along these tabs right at the top here. We talked briefly about contact information. That's going to be able to be pulled from where you're at, or adding it in here prevents the double entry from this into your QuickBooks tab. The team tab is pretty similar to what you currently have. BigTime Enterprise. You can build out full teams, you can assign project managers, and you can also start your approval workflows from here as well by clicking the team lead box for any staff members you see. We recently added a staff team function. So if you have standard teams that apply to a lot of projects, it's very easy to create those teams and apply them with just a few clicks. On the rates tab, this also has the same basic functions that you're used to. This and the team tab have worked pretty well between both systems, so functionally, not much has changed. We have added rate cards recently, so if you have any sort of rate cards that you need to apply across multiple projects, again, we're going to reduce that administrative time and burden to get that done accurately. Outside of that, we also have role-based rates. That's probably the main difference between this rates tab that you currently have. That's going to come into play when we forecast out and allocate time to projects. The tasks tab offers a lot more functionality system. You're able to break out budgets on a single line. As you can see here, if I click on the editor, you can have your budget broken out very granularly. We have hours, we have fees, and we even have an expense budget all on a single line. These are, of course, going to roll up at the bottom here to project overall numbers right there. What you're seeing here is just a basic scope of work. But if there's any other sort of subtasks that you need to add in here, well, those are easy to do as well. like develop, for instance. If we wanted to, we can add subtasks underneath develop and break out our budgets even further. As far as scheduling this project out, we have rolled out a Gantt chart function, which you can see with the schedule button. Clicking on this green box here is going to maximize the view and give us a much broader perspective here. But what we see here is a fully functional Gantt chart. If we need to make any sort of changes to this, it's super easy to create linear plans. You can use our auto schedule feature to make sure things happen in order. And as you can see here, this is again a very basic sort of common scope of work in which these things need to happen in this order. If we click here, we can show the critical path. And in this case, outside of kickoff, everything is going to happen just like that. Now, if you have subtasks, for instance, under develop, you can choose which ones would fall into the critical path and maybe happen simultaneously. But you'll notice as well, this provides our start and end dates for each of these tasks. Easy to keep track of that. You can also add more fields over here, depending on how much you'd like to see on this page. Everything from hour estimates to fee estimates over here, and even a percentage complete. So as the project progresses, it's easy to keep track of those things, even just on this page. We've got our start dates and our schedule, everything going there. The next thing we can do is actually allocate out this time. As of yet, we have these hours applied here and we know the roles that we need. But what we can do here is actually break that out and get even more granular with how we track our project. For instance, I have roles assigned. So I've got enterprise analysts and project managers. We can see how many hours I've already budgeted for each of them. The way we get this information by editing our allocation. This page, we can see the different tasks that we created on the other page, and we can see the work I've done as far as assigning the different roles I need on these projects. We also see these hours broken out over time with red lines representing the due dates for each of these tasks. This is also how we can replace the sales pipeline from your current system. So if you're using that, I'm sure you're familiar that it is basically just entering a dollar amount at a certain date. Well, this tool is going to do that for us, allocate all this time out. Now, one of the main benefits of doing the plan this way is being able to create a baseline. So this is going to be key for change management tracking. You can take a baseline snapshot at any point, project, the beginning, middle, end, whichever you choose, and you can track how your allocations change throughout the project. Just gives you that valuable information for new projects to bid on, so you know where the bottlenecks are occurring, where you're very efficient, and where you might need to expand some hours in your next proposal. But once we're at this stage of the allocation and we know when the hours need to take place and what type of person that we need on there, we can click this View My Staff Member button. Now this solves a pretty common problem for a lot of firms. For instance, if I need to win this bid and I need to assign the right people to it, how do you know who is available to take on this work? Well, BigTime is going to help you out immensely with that. We know that we need a data analyst on our design task. What we can do is click the suggestions button. Now, this gives us a full list of all of my employees that typically work as a data analyst. It also provides me all of the free time they have. It's 2 months. So just by looking at this, I don't have to run any reports. I don't have to have meetings. I don't have to shout down the hall and say, hey, who's available in August for this project? I know right away that Ty has the most capacity for it. I can assign him. So on and so forth. This list is also limited to only the folks that do provide these roles that have availability. For instance, I have about 6 senior architects on staff, but the rest of them are fully booked. They don't have the capacity for these, so they're not popping up for this. Just let BigTime do the heavy lifting for us with that. Now that we've got the assignments done, we're able to save this allocation. We can update the task level assignments. That's going to notify everyone that they've been assigned this work. We can build out the entire project team page here. We added any extra hours into our allocation on this page. We can actually update the hourly budgets and adjust our estimates accordingly. We can also create fee budgets using this information. If we started with role-based billing rates, then we can scope out a project hour-wise and fee-wise before we make any assignments to our staff members by clicking that box. Now, lastly, the revenue recognition model is where our revenue forecasting is going to come into play. Looking here, we can see there's 2 different ways to do this. If we're going to build a project out hourly, level of forecasting, or if it's a fixed fee basis, we can handle that as well. So the allocations really do provide a lot of extra functionality, time saving wise, proposal wise, scope of work wise. And that's just a brief overview of how the allocations could work. And if you do have any questions on that, don't hesitate to type those in. And Matt is standing by waiting to help you out as much as he can. And that is what we've got for our single project today. Now from here, we'll go ahead and explore time and expense tracking and flow into that, invoicing and reports. We'll click on the timesheets page here. Now the mobile app affords a lot of capability to anybody who has it in the new system. Predominantly, it is used to do time and expense entry. Portions can be done very easily on your phone. Compared to your current system, this page is pretty similar. There are some key differences, though, that make it a lot easier to navigate and manage. So we still add those timesheet rows. Choose the project that we're working on. We have the full list of projects. You can scroll down here, but we also implemented the smart type feature. So if we need to just quickly find any of those, again, we can type in the project number, the client name, project name. And we have our full list of tasks to choose from. Now, if you're doing task level assignments, you can limit the choices for your staffers. That way people can only see the task they're assigned to. Going to help with that accuracy of information and efficient entry, even in the approval process. Go in here, let's say is already Thursday. We'll throw 5 hours in there. You also will notice that the notes box pops up right below the line where we're entering the hours. So instead of scrolling all the way down and all the way up, it's all right here for you. We also entered a pretty popular function. We can now require notes for all your time entries. So you no longer have to worry about seeing a bunch of hours and wondering, well, what happened there? Force your employees to enter the narrative, put the notes right here, just like that. New timesheet rows work the same. Here, smart type. Outside of that, we also have a daily view. This is good to enter a lot of hours on a single day. In this case, I've got 13 hours on Thursday already. It's been a long day, but you can do that in the future or in the past as well. The main difference here is being able to save and copy any of these. So if I have an hour here and I'm working on multiple tasks on the same project, you can see how quick and easy this is to get it in here. Save and copy. That to deploy. You'll notice those are going to populate pretty quickly in the weekly view right here as well. Submitting the time, super easy. Click down here to submit those hours. It'll have you confirm the date range and the total hours. That's going to do two things. It's going to trigger the approval process that we have set in place here. Now with BigTime IQ, you're actually able to have multiple layers of approval for time and expense, or you can keep it simple and just have one person review that information. This also locks the time entries. So that way we can be sure that no one is adjusting those after they've been submitted. Again, just keeping that accuracy of information there for us. It looks like we did have a question regarding our QuickBooks integration. So we do integrate with the desktop version of QuickBooks still, and we also have the same level of integration with QuickBooks Online. So if your firm has been considering the switch to QuickBooks Online, we can help facilitate that for you. Remote monitor, again, is only needed, or not needed for the new platform, but our sync agent will be needed for the desktop version of QuickBooks. One last note on time entries. As an administrator or even a staff manager, it's very easy to see our other staff members' timesheets. So if we need to check and see, for instance, what Hal's been up to, very easy to do that. That is the timesheet page in a nutshell. With that, we'll move straight into our expenses. As I've mentioned earlier in the call today, it's pretty easy to do this from the mobile app. You can pull this up, and if you have a receipt image that you need to take a quick picture of, there's a little camera button. So you don't even have to search through your own phone's hard drive in order to find that image and attach it to the expense detail report here. We're going to start here with an expense type. So these are going to come over from your current BigTime platform. You can adjust these however you want. They can all be linked to service items or expense accounts in your QuickBooks file. You can even make categories of these, like I have here for travel. Let's enter some airfare. We'll choose the project, again with the Smart Type function or the infinite scroll for you. Type in the amount. If you're tracking against a specific expense budget on this project, you can set that up as one of these tasks, or you can incorporate it into one of the tasks itself, along with any other fees you'd like to charge. We can add our notes here. And then right here, since we're doing this on a computer, we can click here and check our own hard drive for any sort of expense images that we might have. Okay, so let's throw in our airline ticket. These boxes down here, you can use to mark any expense as non-billable if it's not a pass-through. And we can also track those non-reimbursable expenses. So let's say in this case, I've used a company credit card for airfare, and I'm entering it to not only bill the client, but also get cost reporting on that airfare. We can check this box here, and we can click to specify which credit card it was. Now, these credit cards are going to link to any of the credit card accounts you have set up in your QuickBooks file. The credit card information is going to stay in QuickBooks, but this is just putting a label on there. So when we import it to QuickBooks, it knows where to go. You can also limit which credit cards are even available in BigTime to your staffers. So if every employee has their own card, very easy to set up. Hit save and new, and there's our airfare. Another popular expense type is travel mileage. We have a general mileage expense. Again, we'll start with the project here. And we can, of course, set up a standard cost and reimbursement rate for our mileage. So for our employees, it's going to be a breeze. All they have to know is how many miles they drove and calculate what their reimbursement is. Enter our notes here. So we've got our expenses in here. Another one of the newer features we've rolled out in BigTime IQ is the ability to manage vendor expenses. We can do that as an administrator. And again, it's one of those features that you can give access to only to the people who need it. With this, our full vendor list is going to populate from our QuickBooks file. In this case, let's say we're working with a contractor named John Smith. Throw in a reference number. And we'll also label this as a contractor expense. Project here and the amount. And if we want to, again, associate this with a specific task, we can do that as well. Let's say John did some of the design for this job here. And we'll throw in that invoice that John sent us. There we are. Now, behind the scenes here, we're actually applying automatic markup percentage to this. You'll be able to see that once we go through the approval process here, but just know that this is going to be whatever John has billed us. Want to pass that through normally, you can definitely do that as well. There's our expense report. Submitting expenses is very similar to submitting time. We scroll down here to submit, and we confirm. Now, you do have another option in here. If you're submitting expenses for multiple projects or for any other reason, if you need to break them out, you can submit them together or separately. You can even throw in another image that applies at all. In this case, we'll select them all, submit them together. Now, each employee is going to have a full list of their own expense history. This is pretty valuable for anyone who has a lot of travel expenses. If they're doing their own personal reconciliations, it's very easy to keep track of. They can also monitor the approval status. When things do get approved in BigTime, you will get notifications as well. Stay on top of that too. They can print out those receipt images or any of these expense reports. Just keep a running total if they need to. So with that, we'll go over into our approval process. Now, as I mentioned earlier, you can have a couple layers of approval if you need them. We can even set up invoice approval processes. Right now, I've got a very standard sort of practice in here with just the financial folks and the admin people with access to this. But as you can see, there's a lot of different ways you can route these. Another very popular way to do this is by team lead first, and then maybe they get over to the finance person who's going to draft that invoice. To actually approve the time, when the time is submitted, as I mentioned earlier, whoever's job it is to approve that time, they're going to get an email. So that way they don't even have to log into BigTime to know that this time is ready for review. That email will have a link to this page and they can click straight into here, see what needs to be approved. In this case, I have these 3 hours right here that I've done in the past. I can blindly approve those if I want to, but really the whole point of approving is to get a little bit of a glimpse this information is. Right here, I've got this page set up for what I'd like to see at a glance. You'll notice this gear wheel on a lot of pages in BigTime IQ. That is going to allow you to customize these columns. That way you can just quickly view the information that you need to speed up that approval process. You can also click into any of these entries here and see much more detail. Everything down to the billing rate, to the input hours. You can even differentiate between input and billable. You can make any changes that you need to here. And if for any reason you'd like to reject hours, you can do that as well. If you do that, you're gonna get to send a note and just explain why you're rejecting those time entries. That's gonna unlock any of those entries that you've rejected and allow the staff member to make any necessary changes. The same approval process will apply at that point as well once they're resubmitted. Right back here for you. We want to quickly approve all of these. We can use this button at the top, approve. Now ready for invoicing. And we'll go into our expense approval next. Again, you can blindly approve, but you can click in here for a lot more detail. Really popular choice here is the detail view. We need to quickly do a reconciliation on that information. We could do it just at a glance instead of searching through, a bunch of these different images and whatnot. Mileage, no receipt there. You could take an odometer picture if you need to. There's our contractor invoice. Outside of that, we have the same details available. We can click in here and just make sure all of this is accurate. Move and replace that receipt if need be. And as I mentioned earlier, our contractor expense. I've got a 15%, I think, markup on here. And so we're showing that we're still going to pay John $1,500 for the invoice, but for the client, $1,725. You make any changes that you need to there, check them just the same or approve them as well. And with that, we're going to dive into our invoicing. So this is another totally new module. This is going to be a much more efficient experience than your current system. And we found about 95% of our clients that use QuickBooks Desktop eventually move their invoicing into BigTime IQ because of how easy it is. You still get the benefit of pushing all of this to your general ledger, but the invoice creation, management, and tracking can all be done with relative ease or in BigTime IQ. You'll see right away that all of our work in progress is going to bucket right here for us. And as we create the invoices, they'll move over to the right into drafts and recent invoices for finals here. And we also have a full AR aging report. This particular page is really useful here. So again, we have these columns set up, but we've got the gear wheel. We can customize what we want to see at a glance. Very easy to scroll through this and click in and see, well, gosh, I should probably start collecting on these. This one's from last September. I can even just quickly see the status of all of these. I can see drafted invoices, consolidated invoicing, which we have in IQ now as well. And if I need to click into any of these to quickly make any change, these are live drill down links right to each invoice. Best part about our AR aging reports in BigTime IQ is that as you process those payments over in QuickBooks, you'll still be able to have the AR sync. You won't have to update the invoice in two places. One of the major feature releases that's coming soon in the next quarter or so with BigTime IQ is the ability to process payments in BigTime. So again, that way it just keeps everything a lot simpler, and it really lets QuickBooks and BigTime act more like a single system. Down here, we also have a monthly invoicing summary. So even just at a glance, you can see exactly where we're at, invoiced versus paid amounts. To create an invoice, It's very easy. You can create one from scratch if you need to create a quick fixed fee or a deposit style invoice. Otherwise, if you click into the work in progress, see all this information here. And this is just going to be a summary of all of the time and expenses that we have not billed out yet. And because this is pretty broad right here, if you need to apply any filters to it, you can use the advanced filters button. You can filter by date range, by project type, invoice type, team lead, and you can also make sure you're only seeing approved time and expenses here. And just measures to keep everything accurate and efficient for you. In this case, let's go ahead and bill this product development project we've been working on. Once we select that, we go to our invoice calculator page. Now we have some standard ones in here. There's also more styles of calculators available. If you need to add things like a admin fee or any sort of 10% on net 30, anything like that can typically be created with our custom invoice calculating feature. And it's also very easy to just click time and materials, keep it simple, and get that invoice out the door in just a minute or two. Today, we're going to take a look at our fixed fee billing. One other note on the calculators, though, if you have an invoice that has a couple fixed fee items and then maybe a T&M category for additional services or a catch-all for extra hours, you can choose item-based billing and include all of that in a single invoice. We'll go with fixed fee for the webinar today. Now this page gives us a lot of really good information. So what we're going to do first is filter a date range. Let's make sure we're only billing out the month of May here. That's going to limit the work in progress that we select. So that way, if there's some time that we haven't billed yet in April, maybe we're waiting to bill that until the middle of May, not a problem. By limiting that, it's going to stay in the work in progress bucket. Since we're doing this fixed fee, we also have the option to pick and choose which of these items to bill out. One of the other benefits of doing this way is being able to see the exact amount of fees that we've charged. So this is our fee work in progress broken out by each of these tasks. You have the ability to say, hey, let's bill out exactly what we've tracked in here. That's 32% of the budget right there. Pretty easy to calculate that. Maybe we'll leave deploy for later, but let's say that we completed our kickoff call. And even just type in a percentage here. There we go. Now we're billing out the entirety of that fixed fee amount. You'll see also at the bottom, our travel expenses and our contractor expense are visible right there. If we had any default invoice notes, they'd be popping up here. So those can be really useful if there's something special about this client or this project that we need to know before we send them a bill. But once we know what we're going to bill out here, we'll hit finalize and we will create a drafted invoice. Now, up until now, this is all internal. The client doesn't have to see really any of this if we don't want them to. One of the best things about invoicing out of BigTime IQ is the ability to create custom invoice templates. Now, in QuickBooks Desktop, I believe you can have a couple of those, but it's not limited. BigTime IQ. You can see I've got a couple of these listed right here, some mixed billing, progress templates, detail with notes, you name it. You only have to create the templates once, saved in the system. You can always adjust them, but you never have to. And before we send this invoice out, we can also do one last check on all of the time that we're billing out. And confirm the correct billing rate. If we're using any labor codes as well, those can be added, of course, on the timesheet, but also on the back end as well. Expenses. Once we're satisfied that that's all accurate, if we had a PO number, it would already pop up right here for us. But we can preview what the invoice will look like. With this preview button, this is also where we can start our invoice approval process. We have a number of different customization options on how these invoices look. We can have your logo up here, of course, and we can also match the color scheme of the invoice to any colors that you have in the logo. It'll give it a nice professional look for you. You'll notice here, this is an example of a fixed fee invoice. So we can see we're showing the client progress as we work for them. We can show them that on a percentage or a dollar base for total prior and current invoices and billed amounts. What's more is that if they are kind of lagging a little behind on their invoice payment, we can remind them. We can say, hey, it looks like they got a prior balance of 55,000 here. We can even show them a list of all the unpaid invoices and the days outstanding. If we want to look at some other templates, easy to do, we can check out time detail with notes. This shows you a much simpler view, especially for T&M invoices. Very easy. Set that up there. Here we go. This will show us, and in this case, it's just myself that's been logging time here. Very detailed notes, as you can see. Well, we can show that and arrange it in a number of different ways. Whatever is going to help you get paid faster, that's the goal of creating these invoice templates and choosing the right amount of information. If I were to forward this to review, all I've got to do is click right there. And in this case, the financial admin folks will know that, hey, we've got this invoice to review before it's sent out. Sending the invoice is a breeze. If you have any of those billing contacts in BigTime, you can click this button and email it straight to them. Anybody listed in the contact page for the project will pop up right here. You can even CC any admins or team leads that would need to know that the invoice has been sent. You can, of course, put a custom subject and a message as well. Outside of that, we can post this to QuickBooks, again, with relative ease. By clicking here, it's going to give us a couple different options before we send this over. Again, we want this to be as accurate as possible before it hits our general ledger. We can do things like adjust any sort of rates or taxable line items, anything like that. And you can see here, I've got some Canadian tax rates in here that you can easily apply. Now, what you'll also notice is that each of these line items has a service item associated with it. Your full service item list is going to pop up right here for you. Helps you keep everything straight before it goes over. And you can also apply any classes. Well, there's actually 3 or 4 different places you can use the class feature, depending on how you're using it in QuickBooks. But once you're ready, you just hit Post to QuickBooks, on over. Back to our Invoice Control Center. So that is invoicing in BigTime IQ. Lastly, we'll wrap up with the Report Center. Now, invoicing is a very powerful area of the software. Reporting is even more robust. The name of the game here really is customization. We give you about 40 pre-made reports. Some of them might show you pretty much exactly what you're looking for. Want to see a timesheet detail report? No problem. Want a basic summary of total hours input by staff member? Already there for you. But all of these reports can be customized and edited. That way you only see what you need to. We can see some of the work that's been done recently here, but hitting customize and creating a copy allows you to do a number of different customizations. You can filter the work so that only the relevant people can see the relevant information. There's all kinds of custom grouping and sharing you can do. Now, once you have the reports that you need, we recommend using the My Reports section. This is where you can share the reports between staffers. So if all of your project managers need to view a certain type of budget report, they don't all have to know how to create it. All they have to know how to do is click on the report once you share it with them. We'll do just that. We'll take a look at Jason's budget report. This shows us some good information. We've got this single project view going on. You can, of course, have this by client or by all of your projects, any number of filters you can apply there. But this also shows us broken out by task. We can see here estimated versus input and remaining for hours, dollars, even expenses. As we go all the way to the right, we'll see what we've invoiced and the amounts that remain uninvoiced as well. Reports like this, typically invaluable for your PMs or just for a quick snapshot at how the project is progressing. Because we're putting a lot of data into the system, there's a lot we can pull out as well. I mentioned revenue projections. So we've done our allocations of time, projects, and we can view that information. We actually have a full dashboard dedicated to the utilization of your staff, your manpower planning. But for those revenue projections, it's easy to click in here and see what we're looking at. This one's broken out. I've got revenue being created by task, by staffer, and by project. See all of this rolling up, different groupings for each task. And also at the bottom, we get company-wide numbers. Super easy to keep tabs on that pipeline just by assigning your staff members and allocating them to the projects. All of these reports can be exported to Excel or PDF. So if you need to do any additional calculations or create any additional visualizations of this data outside of the system, it's easy to do. To that extent, we also offer data warehousing if you're using any Power BI tools or any advanced reporting programs. Makes it easy to feed the info in. That is what we're looking at for our report center. And that's going to conclude the product demonstration for today. We do have a couple other items on the list here. So we want to talk a little bit about the conversion process. And before we dive into this, remember, if you have any questions, feel free to type those in. Matt's standing by waiting for those. We've had a couple good ones already. So once you decide the time is right to make the conversion, you actually get a dedicated customer success rep. They're going to guide you every step of the way. They're going to make sure that they've got your goals in mind for not only functionality, but also timeline. It all starts off with a kickoff call. About 15 or 20 minutes, just a quick introduction to make sure everyone's lined up, make sure things are going in order. After that, we'll run an initial test conversion. As I mentioned, the data is going to come over from your current platform if you choose to bring it over. And a lot of times we're talking, 5 to 10 years worth of data. There's a lot of information there. Most of the time, a little bit of cleanup is necessary, especially around any sort of invoices that are brought over. So the test conversion is going to give you a glimpse of what that process is going to entail. From there, we do an admin training to make sure the account's set up correctly, that anyone who has admin access knows how to make any sort of changes that might need to be made. After that, you'll choose a date for your final conversion, get the data over, make sure everyone's trained and ready for the transition, and then choose your go live date. After you're live, you'll of course have access to our fantastic support team. You have a couple different ways to get support at that point. You can use our blue chat box that you might have seen at the bottom right of the screen. You can also always call in or send an email for anything that's less urgent. That support access is free and unlimited for all of your staff members during regular business hours. As far as the next steps, after the webinar today, if anyone has any questions at all that we didn't get to or cover, feel free to reach out to Matt or myself. We can get that going for you, get that answered. And because you attended today, not only are you going to get a copy of everything that we covered, but we can also get you a free 14-day access to a BigTime IQ account with your data in it. That way you can get a feel for exactly the amount of work that the transition will be and get ahead of any kind of questions that might come up. Matt or I will be the contacts for that. And so look out for any sort of correspondence from us on that. But again, if you have any questions, feel free to shoot an email to accountmanagement@bigtime.net. With that, that's going to conclude what we have today. So thank you all again very much for your time, and we look forward to working with each one of you.